People misunderstand silence. They call it avoidance. They call it passivity. They call it emotional immaturity. But silence is rarely empty. Silence is data. When someone grows quiet in conflict, when they withdraw instead of argue, when they hesitate instead of confront, something is happening beneath the surface. The nervous system is calculating. It is scanning for risk. It is choosing the least costly option available. Silence is not the absence of feeling. It is the management of it. No child is born silent in the face of distress. Children protest. They cry. They demand repair. They assume someone will respond. That assumption is not optimism. It is biology. The attachment system expects responsiveness. When responsiveness is inconsistent, silence begins to form. Attachment research has long shown that when caregivers are reliably attuned, children learn that expression is safe. When caregivers are unpredictably warm one moment, withdrawn the next, the child adapts. Not dramatically, not consciously, quietly. If speaking up leads to dismissal, silence protects connection. If anger leads to escalation, silence protects safety. If sadness burdens an already overwhelmed adult, silence protects stability. The nervous system learns quickly what costs too much. In families shaped by emotional volatility or fragility, children often become careful. They monitor tone. They adjust their volume. They sense tension before it subsides. Some become loud and reactive. Others become still. The still ones are often praised. You're so mature. You're easy. You don't cause trouble. What looks like maturity is often containment. Family systems theory describes something called parentification, the subtle or overt shifting of adult responsibility onto a child. Sometimes that means cooking meals or caring for siblings. More often it means managing the emotional temperature of the household. The child becomes the stabilizer, the one who doesn't add pressure, the one who absorbs. Absorbing requires silence. If a parent is depressed, anxious, unpredictable, or overwhelmed, the child learns that their role is to not complicate things. Expression becomes secondary to preservation. Silence becomes strategy. The brain is not evaluating personality traits, it is evaluating threat. Trauma research has repeatedly shown that chronic stress calibrates the nervous system toward threat anticipation. Not always obvious threat, subtle threat, emotional shifts, disapproval, withdrawal, silence from others that feels like punishment. In unpredictable environments, speaking carries risk. So the body chooses containment. Silence is not weakness. It is a readout of perceived danger. Some people learn early that conflict is destabilizing. Arguments are not debates, they are ruptures. Anger is not discussion, it is chaos. So when tension rises, their system does not prepare words, it prepares retreat. They go quiet because they are regulating. Emotion regulation research has shown that suppression can be adaptive in high-risk environments. It reduces escalation. It prevents retaliation. It keeps attachment bonds intact when those bonds feel fragile. But suppression has a cost. When you silence expression repeatedly, you begin to lose access to your own signals. The body still feels. The chest tightens. The jaw clenches. The stomach drops. But the expression pathway is blocked. So the emotion stays internal. Over time, silence becomes default. In adulthood, this pattern is misinterpreted. Partners may accuse you of stonewalling. Friends may call you distant. Colleagues may see you as disengaged. But often what is happening is much simpler. Your nervous system does not believe it is safe to escalate, so it de-escalates itself. Silence can also be the echo of shame. When a child internalizes the belief that their needs are excessive or inconvenient, speaking up feels selfish. If early attempts at expressing discomfort were met with minimization, you're too sensitive. It's not a big deal. Stop overreacting. The system learns that internal signals are unreliable. Better to say nothing than be wrong. Shame does not always scream. Often it whispers, "Don't make this bigger. Don't draw attention. Don't burden anyone." So silence grows. Silence is often mistaken for strength, and sometimes it is. It takes discipline to hold words back. It takes control to regulate visible emotion. But when silence becomes chronic, it stops being choice and becomes reflex. Hyperindependence often develops alongside it. If you learned that vulnerability was unsafe, you may have learned to rely on yourself. Asking for help feels risky. Expressing need feels dangerous. So you solve problems privately. You manage distress internally. You become self-contained. Self-containment looks competent. It also feels lonely. Silence becomes the language of self-reliance. But beneath the quiet exterior, vigilance continues. Trauma researchers describe how bodies shaped by chronic stress remain alert even in calm environments. Silence does not mean relaxation. It often means watchfulness. The room goes quiet, and you are scanning. The conversation shifts, and you are assessing. The argument begins, and you are calculating exit routes. Silence, in these moments, is not withdrawal from care. It is protection from overwhelm. Uneven development often results. You may be articulate in low-stakes settings but wordless in conflict, insightful about others but unclear about your own anger, capable in crisis but frozen in vulnerability. This is not inconsistency. It is conditioning. Children who grow up in emotionally inconsistent environments often mature cognitively early. They learn to read nuance. They understand adult dynamics. They anticipate emotional shifts. But emotional safety, the ability to express freely without retaliation, does not develop at the same pace. So silence fills the gap. In adulthood, this can create confusion. You may value honesty, yet struggle to speak in the moment. You may feel resentment, yet fail to articulate it. You may appear calm while internally overwhelmed. Silence holds what expression never learned to release. There is also the matter of rest. Many who rely on silence struggle with stillness. If quiet once preceded disruption, if tension built silently before eruption, the body may interpret calm as temporary. So even in silence, the nervous system remains braced. Silence is not always peace. Sometimes it is suspended anticipation. The hidden cost of chronic silence is internal fragmentation. When expression is repeatedly withheld, emotion does not disappear. It reorganizes. It becomes tension. It becomes rumination. It becomes physical symptom. It becomes distance. You may tell yourself you're just not confrontational, that you prefer to avoid drama, that you're low-maintenance, but often silence was learned under pressure. It once kept you safe. If speaking up meant risking rejection, silence preserved belonging. If expressing anger meant chaos, silence preserved order. If asking for reassurance meant burdening someone fragile, silence preserved stability. The nervous system does not forget what worked. Even when the environment changes, the body may not update. You may now live among people capable of handling conflict. You may have relationships where vulnerability would be met with care. But your nervous system does not operate on possibility. It operates on history. History says, caution. This is why silence can feel automatic. Words form in your mind but stall at your throat. Emotion rises but gets swallowed. The body tightens instead of speaks. Silence, again, is information. It tells you that somewhere in your learning, expression equaled risk. It tells you that connection once felt conditional. It tells you that your nervous system still believes restraint is necessary. The cost of this restraint accumulates. Chronic suppression contributes to stress load. The body carries tension long after the moment passes. You may appear composed, but sleep becomes light. Shoulders remain tight. Thoughts loop privately. Silence protects externally, but agitates internally. Relationships can suffer quietly. Others may interpret your withdrawal as indifference. You may interpret their misunderstanding as proof that speaking wouldn't help anyway. So silence reinforces itself. This does not mean you are broken. It means your system was trained. It adapted to protect what felt fragile. It prioritized survival over softness. Silence once maintained connection. But patterns formed in survival mode can restrict connection and safety. The unsettling truth is that silence is not weakness, but neither is it neutral. It carries the imprint of early environments. It reflects what the body learned about risk. It signals that some part of you still expects expression to cost more than it gives. Healing is not about forcing speech. It is not about becoming louder or more confrontational. It is about recognizing that your silence has a history. It is about understanding that your quiet was once intelligent. And it is about slowly teaching the nervous system that safety no longer requires disappearance. Rest, care, and protection were once conditional. Silence filled the gaps. It kept you steady when expression felt dangerous. Learning that you no longer need to disappear to stay connected does not make you weak. It makes you recalibrating. And recalibration is quiet work. Silence isn't weakness. It's information about where you once had to survive. And sometimes, the bravest thing is not speaking louder, but recognizing that you no longer have to shrink to stay safe.